So I'm Lucy. I'm a senior software engineer at Uber, working on, well, I think you all saw it in the keynote this morning, our stateless compute platform Up. And it's long and painful, no, not so painful, migration to Kubernetes.
All right, I'm still Robert. I still work at Amesto Fortytwo as the principal cloud engineer. How short can I make this?
Short as you want.
Yeah. All right, I do a lot of things. I say yes to everything, apparently. So, yeah.
Just yes?
Mostly.
Hi, I'm Eric Schabell. I work for Chronosphere. I run a team of technical marketing and developer evangelists.
Yeah, and I guess most of you know me. I'm Rasmus. I'm the data and ML guy, also called CEO at Neurospace.
All right, thank you very much. And I can see that there's a lot of questions coming in right now, so that's great. Thank you so much for that. So there's been a lot of talk throughout the day around platform engineering, internal developer platform. The first question that came in was, what's your biggest challenge when building an internal developer platform?
Well, there's sorry. But it's very hard to please everyone when building an internal developer platform at Uber scale. Pretty much everyone wants everything to be dealt with for them. I mean, to be fair, I can't blame them. I wish I could build products where I didn't have to deal with all the problems. But unfortunately, we have to keep it quite tightly focused on delivering just the core things. I think this was mentioned quite in the earlier talk on building successful platforms. If you accede to every single user's requirements for what they want, then you can end up with this very complex to manage and maintain system that can really suck up even more time than maybe the platform was worth. I think that's one of the bigger challenges is knowing when to say no, and it will be, in my opinion, quite often. A lot of this stuff, is stuff that in my opinion, should be being deployed to others. The other thing, at least for me, is users and portability. Matthias mentioned earlier how important portability is to us. And I think we mentioned earlier how users can very easily build dependencies on any sort of behavior you expose in your system, whether that's documented or not. They might, for example, a quite common one is you let users run a single container, and so they then complain when that container stops working or is preempted or is restarted. It's part of why, at least in Up, we don't let people run a single container. You have to run at least two. These sorts of behaviors are things that are almost really hard to spot because they're kind of just assumptions you make about your system that are like, oh, it just happens. But it's really important, at least in my opinion, to make sure that people don't build these undocumented dependencies on them, even if you have to introduce behavior into your system to cause that to happen. For example, the very famous one in Go is that when you iterate on a map, you always get it back in a random order to stop you building a dependency on that in the future.
Yeah, I think I mentioned it in my talk as well, but it was discussed. Just getting that culture of collaborating, because again, it shouldn't be that there's a team that's creating a platform and kind of dictates what's going on there. It needs to be a back and forth between the users and the people creating the platform, and getting that up and running can be hard, especially big companies with a lot of developers and probably not that many ops people, but still, getting that communication back and forth and being able to get in future requests and iterate that in a proper fashion, usually is kind of weird.
Yeah, from my side of defense, I think the biggest problem is people. I really do enjoy all of you. But it's not a tech problem. And as a community, we often tend to focus on tools. So if you need a developer something platform, Backstage. That will solve everything. And when you then implement it, you have 17 new problems you have to figure out, and more requests, as Lucy says, to put in new plugins and stuff. And what we really need to figure out is, what does developer experience mean as a concept to us as a company? Because I guess it will differ across different companies what you need to do and what is the right thing for you, whatever right means in that sentence. So I think the problem is that we focus on tools instead of focusing on what's the mindset behind this. We saw the same thing with the DevOps movement and stuff, right? Yeah.
Ooh, what am I going to say about this? It's always hard to go last. But one of the things I think is really important is to think about the future with every time we have a technical wave or some kind of advance in technology, we're all here because of cloud native things, right? What is that? Containers, Kubernetes. What happens when that's replaced? What happens when that's next? So in the back of your mind, you always want to be thinking, hey, I need replaceable components, replaceable architecture pieces, including the platform engineering stuff that you generate, whether that's automation pieces or tooling like he's talking about or whatever it is. There's going to be something next. And these are really, really large core pieces of your organization to not be thinking about how to keep stuff open, open standards, open source, open whatever you want to call that in some form or another. So I would suggest you kind of keep that in the back of your mind, all you architects that raised your hand in my talks. That's pretty important to be able to bookmark that and replace pieces when the time comes. Because who knows what's next after containers? If you do, let me know.
That was a big hint at KubeCon in Chicago around generative AI. So you talked about people and platforms. Do you see sort of a use case for generative AI within platform engineering? And do you have some thoughts around Gen AI in general in this? Because I think we haven't talked about Gen AI during this conference. So
no, it's unusual. Yeah. Like every single conference that I've been to has like this blanket of AI, and then kind of pop up with a couple of things. Yeah.
Yeah, I made a joke about OpenAI, so I think I'm good. But no, really, I think generative AI is very hyped right now. Everybody's talking about it, but it's not the most interesting thing going on within machine learning right now. Just gonna say that, put that out there. But from a generative AI perspective, sure, documentation is hard. If you could, in some way or another, use generative AI to provide documentation better to your users, sure thing, please do it. But please be aware of all the pitfalls of these models. It's still pretty early in generative AI. I know the original paper attention is all you need is from what, 7? Something like that. It's pretty old tech, but we just figured out we can make it bigger and then it sort of works. But there will happen a lot of innovation within this field, and also some of the pitfalls like models hallucinating and stuff, or with the co-pilots we are seeing where they don't understand licenses. It's not really great being systematic and putting GPL stuff within defense software, and then you have to release everything as open source. That sucks. So please be aware that they are not going to solve every problem. And right now we're pretty black box to Gen AI, and we need to make it more white box.
Yeah, but there are tools that are using this in some aspects that can be used for platform engineering in general. For instance, like KCD, who can at least give you a pointer to the thing going wrong in your cluster. But having that then kind of fix it automatically, like I wouldn't trust AI to just like fix the thing it sees as an error. But at least then you can run that through something that can explain to you, I see this is going on. I think this might be the solution you're looking for, but then you would have to kind of step in at least.
We're experimenting with generative AI inside Uber right now. One of the things we're doing is we have a Slack channel where our users, mostly in the US, talk to us about our platform. And a lot of the times there's a pretty long wait for a reply because they will wake up in the morning at say 10 o'clock in California and I've already gone home for the day and I'm cooking dinner. We've been experimenting with sometimes having an auto-reply system built on top of generative AI. It's seeing mixed results. There's definitely some more common queries where it's actually pretty much closed out the query for us. But there has been, yes, times where we've had to have someone else intervene and actually say, no, the AI just made something up there. That feature does not exist.
I have something different to bring out. There was one talk here about software, like green software and energy and whatever was going on in the software space. I kind of watched what he was talking about, and from what I could get out of it, it was a model he generated to be able to measure that. But when you talk about AI, and a lot of people don't want to talk about it, is how do you, these models you have, before we even see them, they're massively trained. they're churning in data centers, and they're not even data centers. They call them data centers, but they're basically components designed, a very large group of components are designed very specifically to do this. And if you want to watch something kind of cool, SRECon EU in Dublin has a talk from, I want to say Meta, if I remember correctly, it was Meta. They have one of the biggest ones in Europe right now. And it's a research cluster, they call it, because it's not a data center. And we're talking about, light between two routers to be fast enough. It can't be too long because it's not fast. And you're listening to all this, and they're talking about the amount of stuff they're doing and how much energy is being used. And I'm listening and I'm watching, and they have a Slack channel. And I said, what is the environmental impact of this thing, this place? And that wasn't the right way to phrase it because the answer was pretty vague. And I was like, no, you're not getting away with this. He said, we use water cooling and electric cooling. And I was like, okay, you're getting closer. I don't know if you've seen, but there was an article about a data center that was put in, I think, New Jersey, next to a lake, and was using the water to cool it. And within a year, they had warmed the water like 2 degrees, killing the ecosystem. We just sat down, the guy next to me in Dublin, and counted the number of things he had running. He said, we're running at peak output, I think was 16 kilowatts. And then you just got to multiply this across the thousands of nodes they had. And I was like, you're running entire cities. You're consuming entire cities worth of electricity. I mean, is that worth being able to ask ChatGPT if your, next talk can be generated on a, you know what I'm saying? Or I don't know what other stupid stuff we're asking it, but it's utterly stunning to me that this is kind of glossed over. It is absolutely glossed over. So go look at these data centers or whatever they're calling them, that they're putting these things together and how they're doing this. When they're doing it at the scale, they're doing it to crunch the stuff to be able to answer our questions. I don't know if it's worth it. I'm not pro, I'm not negative, that's fine. It's just, good Lord, the numbers are so big that, we're all paying higher energy bills, right? Since the wars and stuff have happened in Europe. So what the heck? Why are we spending it over there? I would rather that my bill was a little smaller. Sorry, I kind of went off on a rant there. Forgive me.
So there's definitely a lot of things around AI and generative AI and how we can use it. There's a lot of problems, security, privacy aspects, a lot of things that are definitely, just wanted to have AI as a short theme here because I see a lot of the questions is really revolving around developer experience, platform engineering. So there's a question around what are the drawbacks of platform engineering? Are there any drawbacks compared to how we used to do things?
No, it's not.
None?
We have to learn new things.
No.
Some people don't like that. I don't know. I really don't think so. It's sort of a natural evolution that is going on right now, and I think it's great. Obviously, you will have vendors plugging new tools to sell you. That can be pretty irritating, to say the least. But I think it's a natural evolution of what we're doing. And as an industry, IT, if we look at it, we are pretty immature. We haven't lived that long. The industrial era has been going on for over 100 years. We are teenagers compared to them, and they have figured a lot of stuff out we really haven't. And we tried to borrow things like lean, then we figured out that doesn't really, somewhat works and some doesn't. So I'm just seeing that we are growing up as a community and figuring out what is actually the important parts of what we do for the organization.
That's also one of the interesting things about working in this industry is that things are changing so rapidly and all the time. I mean, Kubernetes itself is only, 2014 was the first release. A lot of us were already in industry at that point, so it's everything is changing decade on decade. I mean, especially even at Uber right now, it's like we've moved from Peloton to Kubernetes. I wouldn't be surprised if in 6 years we're moving from Kubernetes to something new. Don't know what that might be, but we'll find out.
Like I said, no.
That's the short answer.
Yeah.
No. So platform engineering, the kind of the definition of platform engineering, the things that we're doing in platform engineering are things that we talked about for years. It's always been better to have self-service. It's always been better to, make sure that the users of the developers are able to get onboarded quickly, to get their stuff up and running quickly, to take all those complexities away. All these things this is not new. But platform engineering, the kind of trend that has come of late, is more like a concrete thing now. So it's more solidified, so to speak. But this is just basically best practices that has moved along and became the way that we should probably do ops. So no.
Do you have a commentary?
I thought I would escape that one.
No, you can. You could definitely.
I think maybe the way you're phrasing it is an economy of scale, right? The companies that are getting so large and huge have the luxury of stepping back and analyzing areas like this. So, the platform engineering with the self-service, the SREs focusing on, reliability. We used to just have, an admin and a developer. And I mean, it's as you get bigger, you have the luxury to do more of that. Your investment is bigger in those areas. So you come up with methodologies, so I think Kubernetes is probably, in cloud native, is a big reason that a lot of this stuff came up, because you have a very auto-scaling kind of environment that would just explode. And if you don't have this stuff under control, you have no clue what happened, last week when all of a sudden you became famous, So that's all I'll say.
So that's all great, but there's actually a lot of questions around how do I convince my management and my organization that I should adopt this? What are sort of the key selling points if people are here attending today, coming back to the organization and hey, we need to do this? What's your view on that? What's the most best selling point?
I think economy of scale is a nice thing to take. Like, it depends on it. Again, it depends. I need a T-shirt that says it depends. It's not going to solve everything, right? It's not like you're going to just take platform engineering in and then all of a sudden everything is great. You still have to work together. You still have to communicate and all those things. But I think it would. Obviously, don't take things to extreme. You have the microservice trend. Like, it became a thing that you were supposed to create really small components and that kind of became a thing in its own and might not fit in all use cases, et cetera, et cetera. It's the same here. Don't jump on the bandwagon and just roll through and go through the checklist and go yeah, this is platform engineering. You need to structure your team to kind of be ready to do that type of thing. Convincing a boss. So far, usually there's bosses that have been kind of implementing this. That's my general observation, that usually it is a mixture between top down and bottom up, where the technical people go to conferences like this and see that this is a trend and how can you implement all this platform stuff. But also that the kind of decision makers also see that this is useful, and they see it from the other side, right? Not to self-promote, it's not self-promote, but when everyone else has been part of it. But platform's white paper, platform's maturity model, go through that material, see what people that have, implemented platform engineering, see what they get out of it, and kind of take it from there. And I think most managers probably going to go, yeah, sure, this sounds like a good thing. It's hard to find a negative thing.
One of the big things that I think is an advantage to at least adopting Kubernetes is standardization. I've seen a lot of companies before where they will use this managed service to do this, and this cloud managed service to do this, and etc. And over time, they build this very deep lock-in to whoever their cloud provider they chose 5 years ago was. I've seen a lot of companies, for example, where they've been on AWS and AWS has raised their prices and they've just been like, well, there's nothing we can do really. We'd have to rebuild the whole company to move. Kubernetes, fundamentally, it not just standardizes your infrastructure, but it's also quite well standardized across cloud providers, which means in terms of the ability to move between providers, it gets better, especially, although of course you can always use AWS specific operators and things, but maybe reconsider that. that I think is particularly useful because at least a more recent trend I've almost seen is a lot of companies where they build such a deep dependency on whatever provider they joined first off that they can never move again. And in at least the last few years, cloud providers have started to notice, and they've started to almost smell blood in the water and raise their prices. I think Amazon now are charging, 108 times the cost it charges them to egress your network traffic per byte. So that's an example. But yeah, I think adopting Kubernetes, it makes you, it not just standardizes your workloads, but it makes you more resilient to building a supply chain or vendor dependency that you can't break free from, which can obviously always come back to bite you in the long term.
Something also that is maybe a little bit more of an interesting way to look at it is not so much to focus on one area of your organization and say, how can I convince my boss to do this and it's going to be cheaper, better, whatever. If you're looking at cheaper and better, especially when you're talking about cloud, there's something called the FinOps Foundation. Pretty well organized, I must say, very straightforward and pretty easy to understand with the sole goal of not saving money, which you would think would be like the whole idea, but it's about optimizing the spend you do in the cloud. So based on what cloud you're using, it's quite a different effect things are going to have that you're doing. And understanding your cloud bill is already a huge ask for a lot of organizations to understand where they're spending the money, why they're spending the money, where they're losing it, that kind of stuff. So I think if you're seriously talking about, what can I introduce to my boss to help save money, it might be worth stepping back and figuring out where the money's going, how it's going, having some kind of process. It's about processes. They have a lot of stuff already solved in those spaces that you can follow along and use to understand where your money is going, right? So why am I spending it? How much is it costing per whatever cycle you're using? And then maybe when you look at a platform engineering team, you can understand what they can save you or what they cannot save, what they can affect in your particular instance. It gets even weirder when you do it across multiple clouds. A couple of the talks I've had, talking about multiple clouds. Okay, now imagine this spiraling out of control, because what you're doing in one does not apply to another. By a long shot, it doesn't. So I would suggest taking a look at that. They have some introductory courses that aren't very expensive you can get into. Super interesting.
Yeah, if you need to convince your boss, figure out what your boss actually cares about. and then tap into that. If it's money, go for the FinOps thing. If he's tired of moving technology all the time, convince him that you can do a nice platform so you don't have to hop that often. If things are breaking down, talk into that. Figure out what is of value, and then figure out the business. Because if you have business arguments, at least from the places I have worked and all the places I have helped with this, if you have a business argument that makes sense, either you can earn more money or you can save money, then people will listen. Else it would just be techno, mumbo, jumbo, and they actually don't care. Bestseller doesn't sell more fashion from having platform engineering. Not directly, but if you can show them that they don't go down on Black Friday, they will care.
We are out of time for this panel, so give a big round of applause to our panelists.